show to watch and listen. Brian killed me.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show based on a true story from 9 to noon.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Stay within you.
Hey, thanks, guys. You too. Good morning, everybody. Breaking news overnight. The U.S. officially a slow withdrawal from Syria. The Pentagon confirming that news to us here at Fox moments ago. This is Mike Pompeo continues a 9-nation tour through the Middle East where he just announced a major move on Iran. So we'll have details on all of that inside of America's Newsroom. First, though, this missing girl found alive overnight. We're now waiting to find out where 13-year-old Jamie Kloss has been for more than 3 months. What a mystery this is. Welcome to Friday. I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in New York. Good morning.
See if we get more news on that in the next few minutes. I'm Sandra Smith. Police arresting a suspect in a small Wisconsin town. Authorities have been searching for Jamie since October 15th, when they discovered her parents shot dead in their home, and Jamie was gone. Months later, she was found flagging down a woman walking her dog. Her family beyond grateful.
Unreal. It's what we've been waiting for 88 days. It's the complete opposite of what we were feeling just a day ago. It's crazy, great emotions that you can't explain. It's unreal, man.
Matt Finn following that story. He's live in Barron, Wisconsin, far northern part of the state. Matt, let's begin with you. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. In less than an hour, we expect to hear from police for the first time, giving us details about 13-year-old Jamie Kloss, who has been found alive after she vanished in October. You can only imagine what this young teenage girl has gone through. Police say her parents were shot to death in their family home. This young girl likely witnessed her parents being executed, and then she vanished. Jamie Kloss's family says that the young girl is receiving medical treatment right now and appears to be physically okay. The girl's family says Jamie apparently escaped from where she was being held in Gordon, Wisconsin. She flagged down a woman walking her dog, telling that woman a man killed her parents. That woman then took Jamie to a neighbor's house, pounded on the door, and screamed, "This is Jamie Kloss." Jamie was described as skinny, disheveled, and wearing shoes too big for her. Police were called, and within 10 minutes, they took an unidentified suspect into custody. Now, this entire community rallied and prayed for Jamie's return, and Jamie's family says they taped the funeral of her parents because they always believed she would come back alive.
She's coming home. Best night. Oh, just happy with lots of emotions and tears tonight, but so happy. And I can't wait to hug that little girl.
So many reports this morning of this entire region rejoicing because, as you can imagine, a suspected killer was on the loose and a young girl was missing. And now in a short while, we expect to learn what are likely going to be some gruesome details about this young girl's recovery.
Matt, we await more news from that on police. Meanwhile, there was a roller coaster ride yesterday. Before Jamie was officially found, there was chaos around the false alarm about 100 miles away. Put that together.
Yeah, yesterday at about 4:30 p.m. local time, Sheriff Fitzgerald here was forced to release an alert that there was a lot of activity, police activity, about 100 miles away from here. And he was forced to clarify that that police activity had nothing to do with Jamie Kloss. Then fast forward just a few short hours, and Sheriff Fitzgerald releases a new report that Jamie Kloss had been found alive in a completely separate incident. Bill.
Thanks, Matt. Matt Finn live there in Barron, Wisconsin. Again, when the police conference begins there, we will take our viewers there live. Thanks. 3 minutes past the hour now.
Meanwhile, thousands of federal workers waking up without paychecks this morning as the president continues to stand firm, saying he has the absolute right to declare a national emergency if he is unable to reach a border wall deal with congressional Democrats.
Many of the people that aren't getting their check, they get it. They're going to get it soon. But many of the people, they're with us 100%. They want us to win this battle. These people want us to win. Everybody wants us to win this battle. It's common sense.
Kevin Corke is at the White House this morning. Good Friday morning to you, Kevin.
Good Friday morning to you, my friend. Listen, just about every morning, Sandra, as you can imagine, I get a text or an email from an administration officials that it says, no wall, no deal in one way or another. But I do get the sense that there's a bit of a pivot happening in the messaging, certainly in the way the White House is talking about this broader issue of border security. A lot less about the wall and a lot more about the consequences of illegal immigration, as seen through the eyes of the women and the men who face the real danger and, for that matter, live along the southern border. There's also a larger immigration debate the president is eager to tackle. Writing this on Twitter this morning, H-1B holders in the U.S. can rest assured that changes are soon coming, which will bring both simplicity and certainty to your stay, including a potential path to citizenship. We want to encourage talented and highly skilled people to pursue career options in the U.S. That, as the president, as you know, took his message to the Lone Star State, where he was asked yesterday about the pain that some federal workers will feel as the shutdown battle between the GOP and the Democrats rages on.
You know who has more human pain? The parents of people who had children killed by an illegal immigrant that should have never been in the country. You know who has more human pain? The husband that lost the wife, or the wife that lost the husband to an illegal immigrant that came in 5 or 6 times that shouldn't be here. That's the human pain.
The president, of course, just prior to departure there. So the next front for the president is here at home at the White House, where he could declare a national emergency to get the funding if the Democrats refuse to pay up.
We have the absolute right to declare a national emergency, and this is security stuff. This is a national emergency. If we don't make a deal with Congress, most likely I will do that. I would actually say I would. I can't imagine any reason why not, because I'm allowed to do it. The law is 100% on my side.
And the conversation continues, Sandra, 2:30 here at the White House, where the president will host a roundtable on border security. And, of course, I will have all the coverage for you here. But for now, back to you.
We appreciate that. Kevin Cork, thank you.
In the meantime, Senator Lindsey Graham weighing in, talking about and taking the stalemate to heart after the president killed what he considered a proposal to end the shutdown. Here's Graham on that.
I have never been more depressed about moving forward than right now. I just don't see a pathway forward. Somebody's got to, get some energy to fix this.
We're going to send him some Red Bull. Let's bring in Tim Carney, commentary editor, Washington Examiner. Tim, good morning to you. You wonder what we'll give. Here's the tweet from Senator Graham earlier today. Mr. President, Democrats are not working in good faith with you. Declare emergency, build a wall now. Tim, what do you think?
It's not exactly that simple. The president can get some money through an emergency declaration and some ability to spend it, but he can't go around seizing land from people who own land on the border that would be necessary through eminent domain or a purchase that's needed to make the wall go the whole length. So part of what's going on is the president trying to show his willingness to take extreme measures in the hope that that will make Democrats deal. On the other hand, I don't think it will. I think the Democrats are very happy to let Trump do whatever he's going to do, grab some power, and take him to court. The Democrats want a fight.
Then, they want to fight. And they want to feel some pain then from that answer. That's what I derive when you consider paychecks.
That's exactly right. The Democrats want to fight. The best way to rile up the Democratic base is to oppose Donald Trump on anything. If Trump were to try to, give a Merry Christmas wish to somebody, they would try to oppose that. Fighting against Trump is where their base gets their energy. So they want to fight, and so it's hard for him to say, I'm going to make it painful for you. They're happy to go to court and fight him over an emergency declaration.
I don't know if you saw Brad Parscale last night. He was on with Martha. He's the Trump campaign manager for 2020. I think this answer is quite revealing. We'll go ahead and play it for you and ask you about it next.
If you go back and you look at the people that are kind of these swing voters, these people who possibly not like him for personality or different reasons, the number one reason they will vote for him is because of his stance on border security.
That right there is the base, and they want it, Tim.
Yes. Now, that said, there's a very fine line to walk here. People want border security, but historically, when you look closely at polling, anybody who puts too much emphasis on the issue of cracking down on illegal immigration runs the risk of turning away exactly those swing voters that Parscale is talking about. The suburban voters who swung from voting Republican in the past to voting Democrat in 2018, they might be with Trump basically on the issue, but if he's willing to go so far as to shut down the government for what could be the longest government shutdown in history, that I think could end up backfiring.
All right, one more quick question here for you, kind of a bit of a turn here. Elizabeth Warren's going to New Hampshire over the weekend. Kamala Harris was on the Colbert Report last night. Seems like she's running as well. And then you have Beto O'Rourke yesterday, who was live streaming his dentist visit.
Dental work.
online. I mean, is this the example of the overshare for a politician?
I think it is. And so I'm most struck by the guys who are doing it differently. Jay Inslee is the governor of Washington. Half of your viewers have probably never heard of him because he's just sort of a regular, boring, white guy Democrat. My theory is that that's the best path. Is you don't need to rally up the base if you're the Democrats, because Trump does that for you. To be a regular, boring guy who doesn't rile up the Republican base, I think that could be the stronger thing. So these Democrats trying to be the most exciting Democrat might be undermining their own cause.
Yeah, but you don't get as many likes that way, Tim.
It's all about the likes.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you in Washington, Tim Carney there. Thank you, sir. So wait till I go to the dentist, Smitty. You're going to love it. Hi, Jesse. She's so nice, and my dentist is outstanding, and you're going to see it all.
Live stream that for us, Bill. A lot of people tune in for that. Meanwhile, we've got this for you. Top Republicans reacting to the news that Michael Cohen will testify publicly on Capitol Hill.
We have tried to get to the bottom of what the FBI did. All these hearings, all these depositions we've had, we start to ask questions about that. Oh, can't answer. Now, who are the Democrats bringing in? The star witness from the Mueller investigation. I mean, you would laugh if this wasn't so serious.
What do Democrats expect to learn from Michael Cohen? Details on that straight ahead.
Also, Mike Pompeo just announcing the U.S. will hold a major summit on Iran. When it will take place and who will be there is critical. We'll tell you about that.
Plus, the U.S. military troop withdrawal from Syria is slowly underway. Congressman Lee Zeldin is on deck. He will join us to discuss all of that next.
The Syrian people will ultimately decide who's going to lead that country. The political process is the way we get to empower those people inside of Syria.
President Trump's former attorney Michael Cohen will testify publicly before the House Oversight Committee February 7th. That will be happening. Lawmakers are consulting with special counsel Robert Mueller to ensure that the testimony doesn't interfere with the ongoing Russia investigation. Cohen's appearance will come 1 month before he starts serving a 3-year prison sentence after pleading guilty to campaign finance and tax charges.
U.S. military will begin the process of withdrawing troops out of Syria. The Pentagon confirming that earlier today, but declining to give details on the timetable for troop movements, which is certainly understandable. This comes as Mike Pompeo announces an international summit on Iran. It'll happen next month, telling Fox News in this exclusive interview that the summit will focus on curbing Iran's influence throughout the Middle East.
We view the malign activity from the Islamic Republic of Iran, this revolutionary force in Iran, as creating enormous instability here in the region. And so part of that is making sure that Iran doesn't destabilize or continue to destabilize Syria. And yes, we will use the full power of the United States to achieve that outcome.
Republican Lee Zeldin serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Sir, thanks for coming back, and good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Dozens of countries will attend, apparently. This will take place in Poland, February 13 and 14. What's the objective, do you think, right now? Because it seems like Mike Pompeo is driving this idea.
It's American leadership. This is American exceptionalism. You have an important initiative to bring dozens of countries together when you make a decision to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal and sanctions are reimposed. There's a difference between just having U.S. sanctions reimposed versus the international community reimposing sanctions as well. U.S. sanctions alone, very powerful. Having more countries on board is important. Additionally, you have other Middle Eastern countries that also view Iranian aggression as an existential threat to their nation and also to their region. So beyond just bilateral diplomacy, multilateral diplomacy, and ramping up economic pressure is the need for coalitions and leadership on the parts of other nations and involvement. So you have different levels of support from the dozens of countries that will be participating, but hopefully as a product of communication and working together and cooperation, you come out of a summit with increased support where you're able to come in a more powerful position after the summit than you were before.
There was a similar campaign with North Korea. Mixed results, I think, so far. I think we can conclude that at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, Iran versus North Korea, in both cases, we do have an incredible amount of economic leverage right now. North Korea, their country is seriously suffering. But, you rely more on China in the case of North Korea, then we are relying on China's involvement as it relates to Iran. So, the United States has many different options on the table to be able to effectively push back on Iranian aggression without having to. So,
yeah, let's see it in time whether or not that's the case. On Syria, I'm sorry to move ahead here, but I want to get a lot in. We are moving ahead with this withdrawal. Sir, do you support that?
Yes, as long as we continue moving forward to ensure that the conditions are right on the ground, that the objectives are being met, the desire to withdraw our troops because the fact is you do have a situation on the ground where ISIS is nearly wiped off of the map. I think it's important to continue to have the flexibility to carry out operations where you're taking out high-value targets, where you're supporting others in this coalition where they are trying to defeat ISIS. So that's important. And you also don't want to see conditions on the ground where Turkey just comes in and just wipes out the Kurds.
Let's hope.
So that's what we're working on.
There's a big blueprint out there that you hope for the best in that. Come back to the speech from Pompeo yesterday. We watched it on our program 24 hours ago. This is the critical line from Cairo. Listen.
That when America retreats, chaos often follows. When we neglect our friends, resentment builds. And when we partner with our enemies, they advance. The good news is this. The age of self-inflicted American shame is over, and so are the policies that produce so much needless suffering.
Age of self-inflicted American shame is over. Why was this speech important?
Well, you had 8 years where the American president and you had Secretary Kerry, especially over the course of the end of his time as Secretary of State, traveling the world, whether it's at the United Nations or all around the globe, apologizing for American exceptionalism. When we were engaging in negotiations with Iran, with Cuba, we were taking the position of weakness and saying that we were sorry for the fact that we are as great of a nation as we are. So you have a new president comes in. It's a new strategy where we are a leader. We will assume our position of strength. We will do the right thing with it. And we also need to understand the reality that when we withdraw from a particular nation, that we can't assume that the good guys are going to fill the vacuum. Oftentimes, it's the aggressors that do so. So if we withdraw from Syria and then the Kurds get wiped out, that really gets to that point of resentment that builds. Why would the Kurds or in some other country, some other group want to fight with us if they know that we're just going to leave them behind and get wiped out after the fact? So it's an important lesson learned, too.
Very interesting speech. Sir, thank you for your time on a quiet day in Washington.
Yeah.
Not many people around. Lee Zeldin, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Bill.
Answered prayers in Wisconsin after a 13-year-old girl missing for months is found alive. We are awaiting a police update on Jamie Kloss. Her parents murdered 3 months ago, and then she vanished. In minutes, we will speak to the neighbor who answered the door when Jamie emerged and asked for help.
We got prayers from everybody. I mean, everybody telling us they're praying for us, and, it's the power of prayer, and it worked.
The family of Jamie Kloss giving thanks today after the Wisconsin teenager was found alive 3 months after her parents were found murdered in their home. A suspect in her kidnapping now in custody. We're awaiting a news conference that is set for 11 a.m. Eastern time. Just a short time away from that, we hope to learn a lot more. Meanwhile, joining us by phone, Peter Kaczynskis, one of the 3 people who found Jamie. Peter, thank you for calling in this morning as we await more details on what exactly happened here. What happened when Jamie emerged on your street asking for help?
There was a neighbor lady who was the one that found her. She was out walking her dog, but she knew that we were home and it was a safer place for Jamie to be. So she knocked on our door. Her dog came in, and then the neighbor lady, helped Jamie into the house, and she said, "This is Jamie," and call 911. And I mean, my jaw hit the floor because I was seeing the ghost.
And you did what? So then you picked up the phone and you called police, and authorities arrived at your home?
I was standing in the kitchen cleaning fish from a fishing trip, and my wife was there, and I just told her, I said, "That's Jamie Kloss, call 911. So my wife called 911 immediately and talked to the dispatcher.
What was the condition of Jamie when she was standing there on your porch? What did she look like, and what did she say?
She looked she looked just like her pictures, but thinner. Same hair color, same length. She looked like she wasn't able to take a bath and take care of herself.
Did she say anything?
So, and she was kind of deadpan, kind of probably in shock. Didn't really say a whole lot.
What did she say?
We asked her if she knew who the person was, and she told us his name, and she told us what color his car was. So as the wife was on the phone with the police, she told the police the name and the make of the vehicle and color.
So she was able to describe the suspect, her kidnapper?
What was that?
So she was describing her kidnapper?
Yes, yes.
Did you get any details about that suspect? Because there's very few available. We're waiting.
We just know who he was, and that was about it.
You know the person personally?
We don't know him personally. We know who he is.
Wow. Okay, and as we know, that suspect is currently in custody. So she then entered into your home. You were awaiting police authorities. There was some stories out there that you have a dog and that she was actually somewhat playful with the pet at your home.
Oh yes, because we just wanted her to just feel really comfortable and safe and relaxed. So we have this little Chiweenie puppy that my wife said, "Would you like to meet our little puppy?" And she said yes. So we brought the puppy in to sit on her lap, and that dogs are little miracle workers, and she just kind of mellowed out and was kind of really relaxed after we brought the pup in.
Do you have any idea, Peter, how she ended up in your neighborhood?
No idea, no clue. She came from Barron to Gordon, and it's probably about an hour and a half from here. So yeah, there's no way we know how to connect the dots yet.
I don't want to ask you to speculate, obviously, but based on everything that you saw, in the condition that you saw Jamie and the location in which she turned up, and having clearly you and your wife know the story of her missing for 3 months, were you able to draw any conclusions yourself as to what has gone on here?
You're breaking up. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Did you and your wife, now that what you've seen and what you just experienced, were you able to draw any conclusions as to what has happened here and why she went missing?
Why she was with him?
Why she went missing?
She didn't really say or give any details.
Did you get any idea that she knew this suspect prior to her kidnapping?
She did not. She did not know him before she was taken.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for your time, and thank you for calling in this morning. And obviously, the entire country wants to know what happened to this girl, and our prayers have been answered. She emerged in your neighborhood and knocked on your door with the person walking the dog. It's an unbelievable story, and we appreciate your time. Peter, thank you. Now we bring in former head of the FBI Crimes Against Children program. You've been listening to all of that. What did you think?
Well, what you heard the neighbors explain there is a stranger abduction. And a stranger abduction is very rare in the United States. We only see about 100 of them a year. It's every parent's worst nightmare, and it's extremely difficult from a law enforcement standpoint to investigate. You're dealing with fact pattern where you just have to draw a circle around the victim and see who they came into contact with and enlist the help of the community to try and bring the child home.
A stranger abduction, you're talking about how rare that is. How rare is it that the person actually walks out of the situation alive?
That is absolutely tremendous. It's a very sad fact pattern, but it's a tremendous win for everybody, for the community, and for law enforcement when the child walks in alive. We never give up in these cases. In the law enforcement community, cases go on sometimes for years. You're still looking for that lead, working with folks from like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, doing aged enhanced photos. What does this child look like now? And here, as the case grows colder, keeping it in the media and enlisting the community.
So really interesting details from the neighbor there about she was able to describe in detail the suspect and what happened to her while she was gone. We'll likely get more details from the police at the news conference shortly. An important part of this story, not only did she disappear 3 months ago, she was kidnapped and now has returned, but her parents were shot that day and murdered.
Correct. So we're dealing with two separate fact patterns here. We have a homicide, a double homicide. Is this the individual who's responsible for the homicide? chances are pretty good, and they're probably looking to work backwards now to develop evidence in the homicide case as well.
Jamie Kloss, the missing 13-year-old girl, found alive in Wisconsin. Hopefully we learn more soon.
I hope we do. Thank you.
You expect the police will share details with us at this news conference at the top of the 11 o'clock hour?
I'm sure there's certain facts that they want to get into the press, because there's people out there who know stuff, and we want them to come forward.
Tim Gallagher, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill?
Wow, what a story. Stand by for more on that. 931 tragedy strikes again this week for law enforcement. She was only 22. She had just joined the force, and now she is gone. Plus, will President Trump make a national emergency for the wall? Former U.S. Assistant Attorney Andy McCarthy on how this will play out. Coming up.
We need to do something. I mean, we need to have an end game. If the end game is an emergency declaration by the president, do it now. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, then you'll do something else. But sitting up here doing nothing is a disservice to everybody.
Police officers shot to death on duty. 22-year-old Natalie Corona killed yesterday during a traffic stop in California. Live in L.A., William Lajeunesse picks up that tough story today. William, good morning.
Well, Bill, this is at least the fourth police officer shot recently, including Officer Corona, who had just graduated from the police academy. Responding to a traffic accident last night, a suspect fired and fled. Officers from around Sacramento surrounded a home in nearby Davis, California, where they found the suspect dead of an apparent suicide.
I've never seen something like this. I mean, it's usually a pretty safe community. So it's a little jarring. I mean, it's unexpected. I was just in Chipotle when it happened, and I go outside and all the streets are blocked off, and you know, we kind of wanted to see what was going on. We didn't realize how serious it was.
Corona was just 22. Her father had spent 26 years as a deputy in a nearby county. Her Facebook page includes a photo that says, quote, "My gratitude for all those law enforcement men and women who have served, are serving, and those who have died in the line of duty protecting our liberties in this great country."
I've heard her describe our officers tonight as our daughter and our friend and just the sister that we all wanted. This is just an absolutely devastating loss to the police department.
Corona is the first officer in Davis to die in the line of duty in 60 years. Bill?
One is too many. How many officers do we lose every year, William?
On average, about 64 are shot each year. It is double that if you include traffic fatalities. Now in Shreveport, Louisiana, 23-year-old Shatiri Payne. She was shot Wednesday as she was leaving for work. As of last night, no suspect in custody. In Orem, Utah, a fugitive hiding in a parking lot fatally shot Joseph Shiners, age 28, as police approached his vehicle. And then in North Carolina, a 23-year-old man wanted in a string of robberies shot a Raleigh officer who did survive and is recovering from his wounds. Is there a thread here, Bill? Yes and no. Felons have no trouble obtaining weapons. They have no fear in using them. Some had a police record, some did not. What we do know is respect for law enforcement is falling. Back to you.
William Lajeunesse, thank you. In L.A. on that today.
President Trump says he may declare a national emergency at the border with no end in sight to a stalemate over the shutdown. The president says he has the absolute right to take action on this issue, but Democrats warn it could trigger a legal battle.
The law is very clear. I mean, we have the absolute right to declare a national emergency, and this is security stuff. This is a national emergency.
The president believes he has his power. Seems to me the only way left is for him to exercise that authority. I don't see any action in the Congress.
For the president to use emergency powers and our armed forces to construct a border wall is not a good precedent to set. And I suspect if the president listens to that advice, he'll end up in court fairly quickly.
Andy McCarthy is a former assistant U.S. attorney and a Fox News contributor. He joins us now. Andy, what challenge does the president face if he decides to go this route?
Well, Sandra, if he goes this route, he'll be in court in a matter of minutes, and that will probably shelve the whole effort because there'll be an extensive litigation. The problem here is that when Congress passed in 1976 the National Emergency Act, there was a check on the president in the act, and that was the legislative veto. In other words, if they had a resolution passed by both houses of Congress to say that there was no emergency, that would be the end of the emergency. The problem, I guess, is that in 1983, 7 years later, the Supreme Court invalidated the legislative veto. So what you have left in the law is the president's ability, according to the law. I think this is very constitutionally dubious, but it's undoubtedly in the law that the president has the authority to declare a national emergency and take actions. The question is, what is the check on that power? In other words, does he get to decide that, or can a court second guess him? And I guess that's what we're going to find out if he declares the emergency.
National Emergencies Act of 1975. It was intended to constrain the power of the presidency. But under that law, the president can declare a national emergency, has to outline the specific emergency powers that he's asking that he's using under existing statutes. So, Andy, my question to you is, can he justify his actions? Does he have enough under the law to do this?
I think he does, but I think it's a terrible way. Number one, it's not the way our government's supposed to work. Congress is supposed to pass the laws. The president's supposed to carry them out. If we have a national emergency short of a real emergent situation, Sandra, where Congress is out of town and they can't convene, there's no reason that Congress shouldn't be the ones declaring the emergency and giving the president legislative authority. This is a counter-constitutional way to govern, but it's unquestionably in the law, and it's ingrained in the law because of this, among other things, this 1975-76 legislation that that we're both discussing now. So yes, he's got the power, but I think what's unsettled is what is the check on the power? And I think you have a very aggressive judiciary, or at least you have had one since Trump has been in, and I think they will stay any order that he gives, and then we'll be in court.
We'll see where it goes. Andy McCarthy, thank you.
And we'll see you in 3 years if that's the case, right? In a moment here, some reporters getting a first-hand look at border security yesterday. Here's one of those.
Steel slats that the president's been talking about right here. As you can see, yes, you can see through these slats to the other side of the U.S.-Mexico border.
In a moment here, why that video did not get the reaction some had expected, what the White House is saying about that directly coming up.
Plus, Congressman Dan Crenshaw has a new op-ed calling out the, quote, silly arguments that Democrats are using against the wall. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton was with the president at the border yesterday, and he joins us next. There, she stops the bus, gets out, picks him up, and brings him back inside. The little boy was less than a year old. In the red there, you can see him, a passenger wrapping the baby up in her coat while they waited for authorities. The baby is okay, just cold and tired, we're told. Officials say his mother may have had a mental health crisis.
What they need more than anything is the barrier, the wall. Call it whatever you want. Whether it's steel or concrete, you don't care. We need a barrier.
President Trump yesterday in Texas doubling down on the argument that a strong barrier is critical to securing that border. Texas State Attorney General Ken Paxton is with me now. He's live in Austin. You were with the president yesterday. What did you learn that you want our viewers to understand about that part of the wall?
Well, I think it's really important for leaders to come to the border to see what's actually going on. You can have your arguments, but until you see what actually is being dealt with down there. He got to meet with a lot of border agents to hear the stories of what they have to deal with every day. He got to meet with some of the victims who have lost loved ones because of illegal immigration. And he got to meet with some of our U.S. senators and other leaders along the border. And I think that's really important as you're making decisions about the border.
We just saw some video of Reggie Singh there, too, that was there yesterday. What about this emergency order? Did that come up?
Not at all. He did not bring that up. He talked about, obviously, the wall and what the consequences of not having the wall. We had a lot of interdiction of drugs and other weapons that we had in front of us just to show what the Border Patrol are dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
All right. Here is Dan Crenshaw, new congressman from Texas, your home state. He wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal. This is just one argument he's making here. It's called The Silly Arguments Against a Border Wall. That's the title. Here it goes. They'll just go around it. Exactly. That's the point, he writes. A deterrent at the busiest sections of the border would allow more effective allocation of manpower. If a mile of the border is walled off, that's one less mile the Border Patrol needs to worry about, end quote. What do you think of that, Ken?
It's hard to argue with common sense. I think Congressman Crenshaw makes a very good and compelling argument that obviously you're going to have to go around the wall if it's there. And that's been clear where we have put the wall. We put a wall, or at least a fence, in El Paso, and it changed El Paso from one of the highest crime rate cities in America to one of the lowest crime rate cities in America. So we know it works. It's worked in other parts of the world, and he makes it.
When did that happen in El Paso? What year was that?
I think it was 2010 that they built that, but it's about 131 miles of wall or fence, and it has worked magnificently well, and it's done exactly what they hoped it would do.
That's interesting. So in only 8 years, you're here to say that a wall in El Paso cut crime that much?
Yes, you can talk to officials in El Paso. I've been down there, and they will talk about it all day long about how their city had such a high crime rate, and now it's one of the lowest in America as a result of a simple deterrent like a fence or a wall.
Ken, what about the argument that they'll just build tunnels?
Look, I mean, you're always going to have to have Border Patrol agents that are going along the border. There's always going to be people trying to get around it, but it definitely, a wall makes it more difficult for people just to walk across, which is what they're doing now.
Yeah. Last question. Does it happen? And if so, what does it look like? What is it called?
I don't know what it's called. I mean, they'll market it, hopefully, the way they want to market it. But I do think eventually it's going to happen. I think the president is committed to this. It was one of his campaign promises. Obviously, the Democrats don't want it. I think more for political reasons. I don't think there's a good rationale for not building a wall along certain parts of the border. So ultimately, I'm always optimistic that the right thing's going to happen for the people of my state and for the rest of the country.
I mean, do you have a way how this is resolved? You got to shut down the government, day 20. You got the battle over this. What do you think? What's the resolution?
The president seemed very resolved. I don't think he's giving in. And typically, presidents that have a resolve about things like this, and you shut the government down, and Congress usually ends up holding the bag on that one. And so ultimately, I think he'll be successful.
Ken Paxton, thank you for your time. Interesting visit yesterday. Thanks for coming back in Austin, Texas today. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you. Have a great day.
Dark side of the moon in a whole new light. The stunning new photos from a historic lunar landing.
It's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Yep. Don't you know that you can't fight the moonlight deep?
China unveiling panoramic images from the dark side of the moon. It's the first look at the far side from up close after China landed a probe there earlier this month. Senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palcott has more from London. Greg.
Hi, Sandra. Yeah, as much of our time these days seems to be focused on the Earth, the Chinese continue to make some spectacular gains out in outer space. Today, sending back some spectacular high-resolution panoramic views of the surface of the moon. That is the far side of the moon, little seen by man. Those views taken from on top of the lander craft, which we put there last week, called Chang'e 4, and sent back via a Chinese communications satellite circling the moon, and of course, posted on Chinese social media. The rover, called Jade Rabbit, was sent out again today for some exploration away from the main landing craft. It had been taking a nap, that's the technical term for it, for the past 5 days, basically staying in the shade with temperatures on the far side of the moon during the lunar day reaching 390 degrees Fahrenheit. They want to protect from that. That rover will be doing experiments over the coming days, weeks, maybe months in the 110-mile wide crater where the landing craft set foot on lunar soil again 10 days ago. This is near the south pole of the moon. And again, Sandra, all of this is yet one more step by China to try to catch up with the United States. They are planning a manned space station around Earth. There is talk of a Chinese manned mission to the moon, and then it's Mars, and then it's another race. We will be watching all of that very closely. Back to you.
Greg Palcott, thank you. How do you love this stuff?
Well, I think it causes a little consternation, if you'll grant me that word, on this story. for NASA just because of what the Chinese government's doing. They pulled something off here that it's getting the attention of a lot of people. Like Mike Massimino is going to come up in about 2 hours from now. And he'll tell us what it all means, because the space race is well underway. That's the point.
Take it all in. Those
Far side of the moon. Right on. We're waiting a news conference now. Serious story here in Wisconsin. We woke up to this news this morning. There is new information on a missing teenager found alive months after her parents were shot and killed inside their own home. We talked to an eyewitness a bit earlier today. The story is getting deeper by the hour, so police are going to brief next hour, and you'll see that live when it begins here on America's Newsroom. Meanwhile, the Pentagon makes it official on Syria. Mike Pompeo talking about plans for our future policy regarding the Middle East. This is a critical issue as well. We'll get to it. Top of the hour on a Friday morning here, America's Newsroom. Come on back.
After vanishing from her home. Police say a suspect is in custody, and the news conference on all of this will take place 1 hour from now, 11 a.m. Eastern. Hope to get an update. Meanwhile, also breaking right now, Fox News confirming the Pentagon is pushing ahead on the plan to withdraw and asked for help about 65 miles from her home. Police say a suspect is in custody.